My name is Leah, and I'm a housewife married to a farmer named Mark. We've been together for 20 years now, and our days are filled with farm work and household chores from dawn till dusk. While some might find this lifestyle challenging, I don't mind it at all. Hey Leah, did you season this soup broth correctly? You're the wife of this household. You should be able to get the broth right, my mother-in-law would often say, accompanied by my husband's sarcastic remarks about my cooking. But their constant criticism doesn't bother me much. I'm actually amazed at how they manage to find the energy to complain about my cooking so frequently. "Ah, this is inedible. I'm throwing it away," my mother-in-law and husband would exclaim as they emptied their soup bowls into the kitchen sink. It's been like this for the entire 20 years of our marriage. Despite the daily harassment, there's a reason I haven't considered divorce. Zoe, our daughter, is that reason. She'll be turning 17 this year. Whenever my mother-in-law and husband start with their harsh words, Zoe is always there to defend me. "Grandma, that's a bit too much," Zoe would scold my mother-in-law when her comments went too far. But one day, things took an unexpected turn. Zoe called me aside and said, "Let's get out of this house, Mom." "But this is your home too," I replied, trying to reason with her. "That again? That's enough. I need to go to school," Zoe stated before heading upstairs to her room. It was clear she wasn't convinced by my words. I found myself at a crossroads. For Zoe's sake, I believed it was essential to make things work in this house. But a few days later, an unexpected incident shook our lives. "I have something to tell you, but I think I might be sick," I confided in my husband. A cancer screening notice came from the local center, and they want me to undergo another examination. My husband's response shocked me. He seemed oddly pleased, even showing me a picture on his phone. It depicted him with a much younger woman engaged in an intimate embrace. "Honey, is this?" I began to ask, but he interrupted me with a sinister grin. "Well, that's what the world calls adultery. She's young and pretty, isn't she?" I couldn't contain my disgust and immediately lashed out at my husband. "What are you talking about? That's disgusting. What the hell? You got a problem with that?" My husband's angry voice filled the room as he pushed me and hurled insults at me. "Get a divorce. Get out," he yelled, his face contorted with anger. You've completely forgotten how much you owe us for taking care of you in this house. If you were a proper wife, you'd have the common sense not to make a fuss about your husband's affairs." I objected vehemently, but adultery is an act of infidelity. It's your fault for engaging in such behavior. My husband responded matter-of-factly, "Hey, what?" Just then, my mother-in-law, startled by the commotion, entered the room. "Hey, Mom, listen to me. Leah is overreacting," my husband said, proudly revealing his affair. He tried to convince her that my reaction was unreasonable. I had hoped my mother-in-law would take my side, even if she usually spoiled her son. But my hopes were shattered when she sided with my husband. "No matter how much you spoil your son, this time Leah is in the wrong," she declared, shocking me. "It's common for husbands to have affairs. You're too narrow-minded not to allow it. Think of Mark, you're blaming him." Her words left me speechless. Would she have felt the same way if her own husband had been unfaithful? Would she have been okay with it? I wondered if she would have accepted it if my late father-in-law had cheated on her. "You're unfit to be a wife. I'd feel sorry for Mark if he didn't have a mistress," my husband added, leaving me stunned by his callousness. Then my husband dropped another bombshell. "Oh yeah, I'm going on an overseas trip with my girlfriend tomorrow. Until then, don't slack off on your work and chores." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you saying?" "Shut up. I don't like sick women. I don't want to be a part of this," my husband interrupted me, making it clear that he was done with our marriage. My mind raced as I considered the consequences of divorce, especially for Zoe. I couldn't bear the thought of her being stuck in this toxic environment. But before I could decide on a course of action, something unexpected happened during dinner that evening. I mustered the courage to speak up. "Let's separate, please." My husband and daughter Zoe stared at me in disbelief. I had endured so much for Zoe's sake, but I couldn't tolerate his infidelity any longer. Zoe broke the silence. "Mom," I continued, "I've put up with a lot, but adultery is where I draw the line. I'll take Zoe and leave this house." My mother-in-law, however, had a different perspective. "Ya is my grandchild," she remarked callously. "If you want a grandchild, why don't you have one with Mark? Have a baby with that girl he's seeing." Zoe couldn't hide her shock as she asked, "Dad, are you really cheating?" "Yes, don't be fooled by this woman," my husband chimed in. "Husbands must have mistresses, and she's crazy for not being able to stand it." "Grandma, please just be quiet for a moment," Sarah, my daughter, intervened, and thankfully, my mother-in-law fell silent. I'm not going to pay you any alimony, my husband continued confidently. You claim it's adultery, but you don't have any proof. That means you can't sue me. Ha ha ha. His words and laughter fueled my anger, but I knew I had to stay calm and focused as my main goal was to take Zoe with me. You don't have to pay, I replied calmly. However, I will take Sarah with me and I ask that you do not contact us in the future. My mother-in-law immediately supported his decision. That's right. You should give Sarah to us. She'll stay with her dad. Besides, it'll be more convenient for you, don't you think? I was taken aback by my daughter's agreement, but then heard her whisper to me, "Run away while Dad is on his trip. I'll handle the rest, Mom. Don't worry, it's going to be all right. I'll explain everything later." I nodded in agreement, and Ya gave me a reassuring smile. Then I'm going to. While my husband and mother-in-law were away, I seized the opportunity to return to my parents' house. My husband repeatedly called me, begging me to come home, but I chose to ignore his pleas. Instead, I went to the hospital for another checkup, which revealed that I had early-stage breast cancer. I called my husband to share the diagnosis with him. His response was cold and callous. "Dear, I knew you were damaged goods. Okay, let's proceed with the divorce, but I'll take custody. I won't allow a deadbeat like you to take Zoe, unless you can provide for her, of course." I couldn't find words to respond to his heartless remarks. I was confident that Zoe would be safe with him thanks to a plan we had discussed. If all went well, Zoe would eventually live with me without any complications. My husband, on the other hand, seemed unaffected by our situation. "Yes, I'm going on another overseas trip with my girlfriend. Meanwhile, I need you to take care of my house. If you don't come, Zoe will be left to handle all the farm work alone. My mother will be traveling with me as well." I bit my lip, suppressing my anger. Our plan was progressing smoothly. However, I was about to be hospitalized, which meant I wouldn't be able to go to my husband's house. "Would you mind if my brother comes over there? I have to stay at the hospital," I explained. My husband's response was far from compassionate. "Ah, what a useless wife. It can't be helped. I'll allow it." "Thank you, dear," I replied with a chuckle. With this cooperation, our strategy would work. Thus, I proceeded with the divorce, leaving Zoe with my husband, thanks to my parents' assistance. I managed to survive my illness, and a year had passed since then. I even found a job and was now living alone in an apartment in my hometown. Since I had spent the past year in the hospital, I hadn't seen Zoe. I wondered how she was doing. As I muttered these thoughts, a loud banging on the front door interrupted my musings. "Leah, I know you're in there. Help me, please, Leah." I was taken aback. Mark and my mother-in-law. I reluctantly opened the door, and there they were, both in tears. "What brings you here?" I asked with a cold demeanor, but they ignored my frosty reception and knelt before me at the entrance. "Please, Leah, stop Zoe. We've been banned, so please tell Zoe not to sue me," Mark pleaded. I was taken aback and said, "And why are you kneeling? The neighbors will see." Mark and my mother-in-law stood up, looking embarrassed. "In the meantime, please come inside. Then we'll have a talk," I said, relenting to their presence. My ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law entered my apartment cautiously, and then they shared something astonishing. "Zoe left home," my ex-husband said, "and what's more, she intends to sue us." My eyes widened in surprise. "Is that so? Please, tell me what happened." They began to explain the situation with Zoe. Somehow, Zoe had taken Mark's hidden bank book, intending to use it as evidence of his infidelity. "So where is Zoe now?" I asked. "At your brother's place. Your brother Max is a lawyer. She went to him for advice on suing me for adultery," Mark explained. "Have you heard anything from your brother or Zoe?" "No, I haven't," I replied. Mark then urged me, "Good. If they ever bring up anything, please promise not to sue us, okay?" I nodded and replied, "Yes, I understand. That's what a wife should do." We're already divorced though. Just when I thought I could finally start a new life, Zoe's trying to ruin it. "If you ever hear from Zoe, make sure to tell her not to sue us," Mark insisted, his earlier obedience seemingly forgotten. With a sigh, I replied, "What happened to your obedient behavior earlier?" It seemed they had reverted to their usual tone with me. Mark then said, "Hey, train there. We've come all the way here, so you should at least pay for our transportation." Feeling compelled to avoid trouble, I offered them each a $100 bill. My ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law eagerly took the money and left. Soon after, I received a call from Sarah. "How are you doing, Mom?" Sarah inquired, her voice filled with relief. "I'm so glad the plan worked." I couldn't help but laugh at her enthusiasm. "Yeah, I got proof of the affair and your bank book that he took and hid away." "Where are you now?" "I'm at Uncle's place," Sarah replied, Her satisfaction was evident as she continued. Once he saw the evidence of the affair that I took with me, he couldn't stop smiling. I chuckled and said, I never thought you would come up with something like this. A year ago, no matter how hard we searched, your uncle and I couldn't find any evidence of the affair. Sarah confidently responded, that's why I told you everything's gonna be fine. But how did you gather the evidence? It's easy, Sarah explained. Dad didn't lock his phone, so I was able to access the messages and pictures of him and his affair partner. But your dad and I are already divorced, I pointed out. Do you think I can still claim compensation? Sarah assured me. I asked Uncle about that too. He said it's okay. Even after a divorce, there's a 3-year statute of limitation, so if you don't go past that, you can demand alimony. I see, I replied, so that's why you stayed with your dad. Sarah confided, I didn't want to witness how he tormented you. I wanted him to face the consequences of his affair. Otherwise, that guy won't be sorry for what he did. I expressed my gratitude, saying, I won't let your efforts go to waste. With that, the plan to prove my husband's adultery and reclaim my savings continued. However, it was just the beginning of a new challenge. I consulted my brother and prepared to file for alimony. After sending the required documents via certified mail, I received a phone call from Mark. What do you mean you're charging me alimony? Stop kidding me, he protested. I'm sorry, I replied calmly. I have to think about Zoe's future. I just wanted to conclude things with you, which is why I had them send you a certified copy, I calmly explained to my husband. He retorted, what's to conclude things, and where is Zoe? I maintained my composure, having grown accustomed to my husband's yelling over time. I don't have to tell you that. Please transfer the alimony to my account, okay? My husband adamantly refused, saying, there's no way I'll pay. I will sue you for being a bad wife. You better get ready. However, I had anticipated this and discussed it with my brother, deciding to file a claim for alimony against my husband's mistress. This was allowed by law, shifting the responsibility for alimony costs due to adultery or cheating onto the other party involved. My husband's mistress was residing in her hometown, so her family members must have seen the legal documents. What transpired afterward was not difficult to imagine. I later learned that the woman with whom my husband had an affair was in tears when she contacted my brother's law firm. Her parents were furious and instructed her to use their savings to repay the alimony. Desperate to lessen the amount, she pleaded with my brother, but he remained firm. He had already obtained her parents' agreement to pay the full amount of the fee. Meanwhile, Mark was on a path to self-destruction. His plans to sue me fell through when he couldn't find a lawyer. It seemed that the alimony had soured his relationship with his affair partner as well. As for my ex-mother-in-law, she suffered a cerebral hemorrhage and required nursing care due to the distress caused by these events. Now, what about Zoe and me? I must tell you about our situation, right? Mom, I'm off. Have a good day, Zoe would say as she headed out. Currently, Zoe is working part-time to save money for college. She attends a regular high school and commutes from my apartment. We've decided to use the alimony to fund Zoe's higher education. Of course, Mark has attempted to contact me several times, seeking reconciliation. His messages usually contain threats, which I promptly record and consult with my brother, who is a lawyer. I filed reports on the harassment, asserting that I'm being threatened. Mark, as expected, also tried to reach out to Zoe, but I am her protector and I will ensure her safety and well-being. You know what happens when you mess with me. Yep, I'm glad you didn't get custody, and I don't want to live with a father like you. What? What do you mean? That's Dad. When a child is over the age of 15, he or she can decide which parent they want to live with. Remember when you explained that to me? You said I could do it on my own. So I had Mom take custody, but you were traveling overseas all the time with your mistress. That's why you never bothered to ask my uncle, who is a lawyer. No way. I don't accept that. You've got to be kidding me. Well, why don't you check the family register? My last name will probably be changed to Mom's maiden name. With that, Sarah hung up the phone, leaving my husband bewildered and frustrated. He persisted, threatening to take custody of Sarah, but his relentless calls led to him being charged with intimidation and interrogated by the police. Although the case was eventually dropped due to being a first offense, the neighborhood gossip about his arrest seemed to have embarrassed him. I hadn't heard from my ex-husband since then, and years had passed. I had endured everything for my daughter's sake, but I had no idea that Sarah was secretly planning revenge on my adulterous husband. Having such a kind-hearted daughter made me realize how much she had grown, and I wanted us to continue supporting each other as mother and daughter from that point on. Thank you, Mom, for keeping me safe all these years, Sarah said. I was the one who was being protected. I didn't know you could be so dependable. When did you grow up? I'm glad you've become such a kind and strong young woman. Now, I'll have to step up and do my best for your sake.